Hi mga bata! Welcome in math class. In this video, we will discuss the Mathematics 7, Quarter 1, Module 3, entitled The Absolute Value and Operations on Integers. The module is divided into 5 lessons, namely, Lesson 1, representing the absolute value of a number on a number line. Lesson 2, addition of integers. Lesson 3, subtraction of integers. Lesson 4, multiplication of integers. Lesson 5, division of integers. And what are the objectives in this module? First, represent the absolute value of a number on a number line. Second, find the sum of integers and solve problems involving addition of integers. Third, find the difference of integers and solve problems involving subtraction of integers. Fourth, find the product of integers and solve problems involving multiplication of integers. And fifth, find the quotient of two integers and solve problems involving division of integers. In Lesson 1, representing the absolute value of a number on a number line. Before we start our discussion, let's have an activity. And this activity entitled, What's the Opposite? We will just give the opposite of the following numbers. For example, for positive 7, that is negative 7. For negative 4, that is positive 4. For negative 11, that is positive 11. For positive 8, that is negative 8. For negative 16, that is positive 16. And for 100 or positive 100, that is negative 100. So these are the opposite of this number. Now, remember that the opposite is also called the additive inverse. So kapag ang tinatanong is what is the additive inverse of positive 3, then that is negative 3. What is the opposite of positive 3? That is also negative 3. Because the other term of the opposite is additive inverse. So pag sinabi nating additive inverse, that is also referring to its opposite. In our module, What's New, page 4, some situations can represent integers. Complete the table by giving the appropriate term. For example, our situation is time. For negative, that is before. For 0, that is now. And for positive, that is after. Next, so a number line, we all know that a number line consists of positive integers, negative integers, and 0. Alright, now, negative 1 here is the opposite of positive 1, or pwede rin namang vice versa. Pwedeng positive 1 is the opposite of negative 1. Next, positive 4 is the opposite of negative 4. And negative 7 is the opposite of positive 7. Or pwede rin namang positive 7 is the opposite of negative 7. So, remember that the opposite is to positive to negative and negative to positive or additive inverse. Alright, let's proceed to our lesson 1, the absolute value. So, what is an absolute value? The absolute value of a number is the distance between that number and 0. Or pwede rin naman pag sinabi nating absolute value, it is referring to the distance. When we say distance, we are getting the number of units kung gaano kalayo yung number na yon o yung integers na yon sa 0. So, ibig sabihin ng distance. So, distance refers to the absolute value. Now, an absolute value is denoted by this symbol. So, as you can see, we are using two bars to represent the absolute value so that we don't need to write the word absolute value. So, kapag nagre-represent tayo ng absolute value, we can make use this symbol. Ano nga ulit ang symbol natin? We can make use of these two bars. Okay, let's have an examples. How are you going to represent the absolute value? How do we read the examples using the absolute value? So first, this is the absolute value of 2 is 2 or positive 2. So this is how to read the given first example. Therefore, this is read as the absolute value of 2 is 2. Next, this is the absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. And this is, since we have here the negative sign outside the absolute value, therefore, this is read as the negative absolute value of 2 is negative 2. Ito ang dahilan kung bakit ang sagot dito ay naging negative. Next, so again, I have 0, positive integers, and negative integers. Now, what is the distance of positive 4 from 0? So, paano natin kukunin ang distance? Pag sinabi nating absolute value, that is referring to the distance of number and 0. Gaano kalayo sila sa isa't isa? So, we will count hanggang positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, the distance of 4 from 0 is 4. Okay, what is the distance of negative 4 from 0? Magbibilang tayo ng 1, 2, 3, 4. So, mag-e-end tayo sa negative 4. Gaano kalayo? Ilang units? That is 4 also. Now, paano natin susulat ito in symbol? So, since we are referring to the distance, so we will be using 2 bars. So, the absolute value of positive 4 is equal to 4. And the absolute value of negative 4 is also to 4. Now, what have you noticed? When we're trying to get the absolute value of positive 4 and negative 4, as you can see, they have the same answer. Okay, so remember that when we are getting the absolute value of positive numbers, they must have or palagi silang positive. So the absolute value of 4 is positive 4 and the absolute value of negative 4 is equal to 4. Remember that the absolute value of a number is the distance between that number and 0. Ito yung kanina. Remember that the absolute value of a number is the distance between that number and 0. So, since kinukuha lang naman natin yung layo, ang distance ng number na yon sa 0, so ibig sabihin, it can never negative. So, uulitin ko, kapag distance ang kinukuha natin, hindi tayo pwedeng magkaroon ng negative values since we are just counting the units. Let's have an example for the absolute value. The absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5. The negative absolute value of negative 5 is negative 5. As you can see, we have here the negative outside the 2 bars, kaya po siya naging negative. Next, negative absolute value of 5 is negative 5. Kasi makikita po natin na meron ulit tayong negative sa labas ng absolute value. Kaya siya naging negative. Another example using the operation. The absolute value of 4 plus 2 is equal to the absolute value of 6 is 6. Next, the absolute value of 9 minus 2 is equal to the absolute value of 7 is 7. The absolute value of negative 8 minus the absolute value of 2 is equal to 8 minus 2, that is 6. Let's have an illustration, or let's illustrate. Represent the following absolute value of a number on a number line. For example, the absolute value of 6. Solution. Since 6 is 6 units from 0, the absolute value of 6 is 6. In symbol, the absolute value of 6 is equal to 6. Next, the absolute value of 0 is 0. Napapansin nyo na hindi tayo mag-move kasi yung 0 yung hinahanap nating absolute value. The absolute value of 0 is 0. In symbol, the absolute value of 0 is 0. For number 3, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Mag-start tayo from 0 at mag-end tayo sa negative 3. Since negative 3 is the 3 units from 0, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. In symbol, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. In our module, What's More, page 5, for letter A, represent the following value of a number on a number line. For letter B, give the absolute value of the following number lines. For example, for letter A, and for letter B, let's proceed to our lesson 2, the addition of integers. Meron tayong dalawang rule dito. Let's focus first the rule number 1. When the integers have like sign, add the numbers and copy the common sign. Kapag meron tayong parehas na sign, for example, positive and positive or negative and negative, we will just add the numbers and copy the common sign. For example, for number 1, 8 plus 5 equals 13. Notice that 8 is positive and 5 is also positive. They have like sign. So add 8 and 5, then copy the common positive sign. Therefore, the answer is positive 13 or 13. Next, negative 10 plus negative 9 is equal to negative 19. Notice that 10 is negative and 9 is also negative. They have like sign. So add 10 and 9, then copy the common negative sign. Therefore, the answer is negative 19 or negative 19. What if kapag magkaiba naman ng sign in addition of integers? That is our rule number 2. When the integers have unlike sign, subtract the numbers and use the sign of the number with a greater absolute value. For example, negative 2 plus 4 equals 2. Notice that 2 is negative while 4 is positive. They have unlike sign. So, subtract 2 from 4, then copy the sign of 4 since it has greater value. Therefore, the answer is positive 2 or 2. Para mas maintindihan pa natin, meron pa tayo dito. Let's do more. For letter A, 38 plus negative 20 equals 38 minus 20. We will subtract the numbers. Next, 38 minus 20, that is 18. Since the sign of the number with the greater absolute value is positive, then the answer is positive. For letter B, negative 42 plus 16 equals 42 minus 16 because our numbers are unlike sign. So, you will subtract the numbers. So, 42 minus 16, that is negative 26. Since the sign of the number with the greater absolute value is negative, the answer is negative. Next, for letter C, negative 15 plus 22 plus negative 16 plus 8. You will combine first the number with like sign, the negative 15 and negative 16. And for positive, that is 22 and positive 8. Then after that, you will add the negative 15 plus negative 16, that is equivalent to negative 31. Then 22 plus 8, that is 13. Then after that, subtract the numbers with unlike sign, that is equivalent to negative 1. Since the sign of the number with the greater absolute value is negative, the answer is negative. Always remember this. Do not forget steps in adding integers. To add integers having like sign or the rule number 1, positive and positive or negative and negative. For step 1, add the numbers. Step 2, copy the common sign of the integers. Next, to add integers having like sign, or the rule number 2, the positive and negative, or the vice versa, which is negative and positive. Step 1, subtract the numbers. Step 2, copy the sign of the larger number. Let's try to answer this. 8 plus 5, that is 13. Negative 8 plus negative 5, that is negative 13. Positive 10 plus negative 4, that is positive 6. Negative 12 plus positive 3, that is negative 9. In our module, what can I do? Page 10, solve the following problems. For example, we have a problem. You park in the garage 3 floors below the ground level, then you get in the elevator and go up 12 floors. What floor do you get of the elevator? Solution, meron po tayong negative 3 dito. Bakit po? Kasi 3 floors below, kaya meron tayong negative. Next, 12 floors up, kaya siya naging positive. Since magkaiba tayo ng sign, we will subtract the 3 from 12, that is 9. Then copy the bigger sign, which is positive. Therefore, you will get off on the 9th floor. For lesson 3, subtraction of integers. Para mas madaling maintindihan ito, meron tayong acronym dito. Ito ay 3 C's. Copy, change, change. For example, number 1, let us copy the 7, change the operation of subtraction into addition, then change the positive 3 into negative 3. Then, follow the rules of addition. Since we have here the different sign or unlike sign, you will minus or subtract the 7 to 3. So the answer is 4. Then copy the bigger or the larger sign, which is positive. So the answer is positive 4. For number 2, copy the 2, change the subtraction into addition, and change the negative 4 into positive 4. So the answer is positive 6. For number 3, copy the negative 3, change the subtraction into addition, and change the positive 5 into negative 5. So the answer is negative 8. For number 4, copy the negative 5, change the subtraction into addition, and change the negative 2 into positive 2. So the answer is negative 3. In our module, what's more, page 14, letter A, subtract the following integers. For letter B, find the missing number in each subtraction sentence. Do not forget, for rules in subtracting integers. First step, copy the first number or the minuend. Second step, change the sign of the operation. Third step, change the sign of the second number or the subtrahend. Then proceed to the addition or the steps in adding of integers. Do not forget the 3C, the copy, change, change. For lesson 4 and 5, and the explanation for the assessment and the other activities, Ma'am Leia will discuss it. So, goodbye!